Hello everyone! Welcome to a very special game of Gwent for me. This was the last game that I played using my custom-made Shupe deck. I call it the Burning Dwarf Shupe deck, or Shupe and the Seven Dwarves. There's actually only 6, but one makes a second dwarf with him, so it's a total of 7. It counts. And this was the match that got me into Grandmaster, which I had been trying to do for 300-something hours. The music. This is Witcher 3 music, not Gwent music. But Gwent music is fantastic as well, just not quite the tone. Oh. Now this deck is built around using the Hattori combo on Barclay to get a huge elf at the end, and then using Shupe's Hunter ability to redo it again. And since Shupe Hunter can also just shoot things down, there's usually a 90% chance that I'll gain 23 to 29 points. Now at this point, my opponent uses an operator and reveals that he is a Scoia'Tel deck. The sentry that he put in my hand gets stronger for every spell that's played. I only have Shupe as my spell. Well, if you don't count the things that the mages cast. So, my units, if I cast the same unit, it's going to be 5 points. I decide to use my scout in order to send him back into the deck and draw something else. I draw a Sapper, which is a really low tempo play. And it starts to get me worried, because if my opponent takes round 1, I might not be able to get Shupe out. I might not be able to get Shupe in my hand. I start getting worried about having my win condition. And I start thinking about what to do next. But overall, it's not too bad. Now, he just summoned the lowest thing in his deck, which happens to be an Elven Mercenary. And that Elven Mercenary gets a Mahaka Male. I think that the Mahaka Male was the... he got 2 of them in the deck because it only gave him 6 points. Combined with the with everything else for a total of +3, so a 9-point play. Since an average play for him, I would expect to be around 11 points, with the exception of the operator that's setting up a 20-point play later. Every one of those sentries is roughly worth 20 points. Now at that moment, I was still ahead because his 9-point play was so weak. So I could have put the Sapper down, but I instead elected to play my highest tempo play with Barclay in order to set up for using Isengrim for Teruvial. I like to win in a tricky way if possible. But this way is just blunt to the point and allows me to win round 1 and keep pushing round 2. I want to make it so that I only have 2 cards left. Now that I know he has a sentry in his hand created by operator, that's another 20 points. The worst case scenario is 80 points slinging toward my face, and I only have a 59.2 cards. However, since I can generate that with 50 points with 2 cards, he can generate what, 42? I decided to go for it and commit to Teruvial, the Trapper. I'm going down a card. I have to take a lot of risks in the second round in order to not go down. If he gets a third card that's 60 points, I would have 54 even in the best of times, and I'm probably doing the math wrong. I draw the Sentry, a bad draw for me. Luckily, since I have that Sapper, I was worried about it being low tempo, but now that I have Vryhead Officer in my hand, I can use the Sapper in order to make it stronger. I decided to open up with the strongest play possible. I don't want to go a card down. I pretty much need to keep ahead of my opponent, and I need to get down to the lowest possible 2 cards. If I can, I want to keep my leader in play, because he can summon Hattori and enable the ending combo that is my win condition. What's so special about Gwent, for the record, is every card game that you know... Oh, for the record, he just completely destroyed my unit. I decide that he's probably going to keep ahead, and I use my spy. I hope that he doesn't have a counter spy. But what's so special about Gwent is that it's really win condition versus win condition. Since there's a first, second, and third round, and you get roughly half your cards always in your hand, card advantage is a huge deal, and you need to construct a deck that's both good in the long game and the short game. With a spy giving you 1 card for the future round, it basically sacrifices your points in a single round to get a card in a later round. Since he got so far ahead using that destruction on my Vryhead, I decided to give him my officer. He's going to get a card up, and he seems to not have an officer, so this is a spy. So this is giving me the chance to just keep pushing. I'm throwing out all my weak cards, and I'm trying to decide which cards would be the most valuable. I want to try, if he does have the spy in his hand, he might be worried about giving me advantage. by giving me the 13 points of the spy. If we both give a spy, we're both giving each other 13 points, so that's something to worry about. I, of course, have a Shiru in my hand. He's the one on the first right. He destroys the strongest unit, and if people are tied, they'll die. They'll both die. I decide that I want to use Shiru in the last round. I know he has 20-point cards in his hand. I know he has sentries in his hand. So I want to destroy them instead. So I'm just throwing out my weakest cards. I'm hoping he doesn't have a counter spy. If he gives me 13 points now, I know what to do. I probably should have attacked another one of the units to keep the strongest unit, the spy on his side. So if he does something that says like destroy the strongest unit on the field, it would destroy his own. He decides to keep using Mahakamail. I don't know why he wouldn't have used a spy at this point, so I assume he doesn't have it. I assume I can keep committing low cost, low risk cards in order to get ahead. I'm just taking advantage of everything I can. Again, I want to try and get Shupe, and if possible, my leader, out onto the field in the third round and give him nothing else to work with. So now I'm just deciding what kind of cards should I throw away. My Sage, I don't think has a target, but everything else does. I'm a little wary about using the Archer because it sets up a Scorch target, and I'm worried that since he's a Scoia'Tel, he probably has multiple copies of Scorch in his hand, and his usual win condition is destroying the strongest thing on the opponent's side of the field until nothing is left, and then bringing out the big guns with 20-point cards. Or he could be so dedicated to the 20-point cards that he just has a ton of spells to keep jamming out. I decide it's worth it to... I decide that he probably has the high point units, so I decide to attack his units. I don't have to worry about setting up Scorch later. The worst that would happen is I don't have some method of generating my own Scorch targets, but I decide that since all of his sentries are roughly the same value, I don't have to worry about it. Again, I'm just throwing out cards now. I'm just forcing him to keep playing into this round, to keep trying to beat me. He could, if he gives up, he plays a, if he gives up, I'll win right away. He decides to play a cheeky card there. I do the same. My Sage going down is just 2 points. It can't summon anything from the graveyard like it's supposed to. It's literally just forcing him to keep investing more cards into the round. I don't want him to have that many cards into the next round. What he did, that what I call cheeky, was Artifact Compression on my Explosive. After the end of the round, the Explosive would have gone off, but he decided to turn it into a statue instead, saving him roughly 4 points and giving him... I'll say that that was about a 6-point play, that he could have saved for a bigger unit, but he's correct in that if he had done that, I would have had other options available. He maybe should have saved it for round 3, when I could have pulled out a 12-cost unit, if he could predict my deck the same way I'm predicting his. I basically know everything in his deck, except that I assume that he's using Scorches, and it looks like he's using things that will empower his Sentry, which he just pulled out. I now know he only has 3 units max. If a Sentry's every card in his hand, he is going to have maybe... that one's 16, so I'll assume that it will keep being 16. I will assume that he has 48 points or so. I'm not really thinking clearly. At this point, I draw a Geralt, and I decide that he might be able to generate a 25-point unit. This was just foolishness. There is no reason that he should have a 25-point unit unless he completely screws up. If he just plays on each row, there's no number of spells that he's going to get in order to generate 25 points on a single row unless he completely screws up. Almost any card would have been better than that. I realize that at this point, and I realize that I probably just thrown the game due to my nerves. I need to be able to get by with all my cards having just the 5 points from Geralt. I decide to do the first part of my 2-part combo. I Hattori into Barclay in order to generate a large series of dwarves, a large series of points. Generally, if I only have 2 points left, I do this, and then I do Shupe, who can activate on either Barclay or Hattori. Hattori can revive any other unit. Usually I use it on Teruviel, who, as you saw, bursts up from the ground after my opponent passes, and regenerates everyone. Or I can do it to Barclay to get a big dwarf. Barclay with dwarfs is the strongest. I just choose to go Shupe now, despite having 2 burners in the deck. He is throwing at huge cards, and if he throws more into the field at roughly the same value, I decide to try and get them. I'm still praying that he's going to screw up and give me access to draw Igni, but I know it's almost impossible. I'm fighting a Grandmaster, and I have to hope that he's as nervous as I feel. He throws out the third. If only I had saved my Dublineth Archer, I could have got 2 down in 1. I decided that that's impossible. I decided to kill his strongest one, an 18-point unit. This is worth 22. I'm now ahead by 22. I can't think of anything that he could get, but then he pulls out Royal Orders. That's a special card, empowers both of them, gets him Triss, terrifies me. I thought he was going to pull out some kind of recon and a 3rd unit, but I remembered that he used the 4th in the other round. I win with Igni, and I managed to get just enough points to get into Grandmaster. Oh, I'll be joining you all for the Pro Ladder when the next season comes up. I hope to start streaming on Twitch about an hour or 2 every day and putting the videos up. This is, I guess, my announcement video that I hope to start streaming on Twitch next week. I'll start doing beam decks or showing various win conditions. Like I just told you mine, to get the 2 strongest creatures at the very end and whittle my opponent down after winning round 1. So I have a lot of strong round 1 cards. I don't fight for a long round. I just keep wanting to push my opponent into a round 2, and I just push through round 2, giving up all my weak cards until I have exceptionally strong win condition. I was really happy about my North America ranking. I judge myself according to NA as opposed to the global more often. And here is Shupe, the person who inspired me to play this deck, the Ogre Knight himself. And I'll see you on tomorrow. I'll see you with regular updates, and I'll see you on stream. Goodbye.